The girls in the magazine are admittedly young. The average age of our male reader is 26, so there's a certain logic to that. But in terms of my attitude on the feminist movement as it exists now.
Behind closed gates stood a mansion that promised fantasy, but hid disturbing secrets. From vaults of tapes to hidden rooms, what investigators uncovered inside Hugh Hefner's home will blow your mind. The name Hugh Hefner is synonymous with silk robes, late-night parties, and an empire that built its reputation on fantasy. For decades, Hefner cultivated the image of a man who had it all: wealth, power, women, and influence. At the center of this carefully crafted empire was the Playboy Mansion, an estate in Los Angeles that became as famous as the man himself. But while millions saw the mansion as a symbol of freedom and glamour, those who stepped behind its walls often described something very different. It was a world of contradictions, where indulgence clashed with control and where secrets lurked in every hallway. To understand why the discoveries inside the mansion were so shocking, we need to start with how it all began. The birth of a media empire. Hugh Hefner launched Playboy magazine in December 1953 with a borrowed $600 and a dream. The very first issue featured Marilyn Monroe on the cover, a decision that catapulted the magazine into instant fame. Within a year, Hefner was no longer just a publisher, he was a cultural figure. Playboy was not just about photographs, it also featured interviews with some of the most influential figures of the time, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Muhammad Ali. Hefner marketed himself as a revolutionary who challenged conservative norms and championed sexual liberation. To his supporters, he was a visionary who helped America break free from rigid traditions. To his critics, he was exploiting women under the guise of freedom. Either way, the Playboy brand became one of the most recognizable in the world, and Hefner himself became its face. By the late 1960s, Hefner's empire was booming. In 1971, he purchased the iconic mansion in Holmby Hills for just over $1 million, a price that would be considered a bargain even then. The estate, originally built in 1927, had 29 rooms, sprawling gardens, a tennis court, and even a private zoo. But Hefner had bigger plans for it. He transformed the mansion into the beating heart of the Playboy lifestyle. The grotto, with its cave-like pools and steamy atmosphere, became legendary. The game rooms, theaters, and elaborate party spaces turned the house into a playground for celebrities, athletes, and politicians. From the outside, it looked like paradise. To the public, it became the ultimate symbol of hedonism, luxury, and the promise of endless fun. The guest lists at these parties were unmatched. Hollywood stars like Jack Nicholson, Warren Beatty, and Tony Curtis were frequent visitors. Musicians from Elvis Presley to Mick Jagger walked its halls. Politicians and athletes mingled freely, knowing that the mansion was a place where status melted into indulgence. The perfect illusion. But the Playboy Mansion was more than just a party house. It was a stage set designed to maintain Hefner's image. Every room, every event, every photograph that left those gates was carefully curated to show a life of absolute freedom. The women who lived there, known as playmates or Hefner's girlfriends, were presented as the embodiment of beauty and liberation. Yet whispers began to circulate. Guests and insiders noticed strange details: hidden doors, restricted areas, and Hefner's obsession with controlling what people saw and heard. To many, the mansion looked like paradise. To others, it felt like a carefully controlled illusion. Hefner himself rarely left the property. By the 1980s, he had become increasingly reclusive, spending most of his time in the mansion, surrounded by a rotating circle of women. While outsiders saw it as the dream life of a playboy, insiders often described it as suffocating. In later years, several former girlfriends would speak out about what life inside was really like. They described strict rules, mandatory curfews, and expectations that clashed with the image of liberation Playboy promoted. There were even stories of surveillance, of cameras hidden in unexpected places, raising questions about just how much privacy anyone really had inside those walls. The mansion's mystique only grew as more people speculated about what went on when the cameras were not rolling. What was in the hidden rooms? What was locked away in the rumored vault? And why did so many celebrities seem uneasy when the subject of their time at the mansion came up? On one hand, the Playboy Mansion was a hub of entertainment, filled with laughter, music, and unforgettable nights. On the other, it was a fortress of secrecy, where Hefner allegedly documented everything. His obsession with archiving life was legendary. He reportedly kept thousands of scrapbooks filled with photos, clippings, and personal notes. He was not just living in the moment, he was recording every moment for posterity. That obsession raised questions. Was Hefner simply preserving history? Or was he also keeping leverage over those who entered his world? When people later claimed that there were vaults filled with tapes and photographs, it seemed entirely plausible given his compulsive need to document. The first glimpses of mystery. By the 1990s and early 2000s, stories about the darker side of the mansion became harder to ignore. Lawsuits, tell-all books, and candid interviews painted a different picture of the so-called paradise. Former playmates spoke of feeling trapped, of being forced to follow rules that reduced their independence. Staff members hinted at unusual practices and unsettling discoveries hidden behind the mansion's glamorous facade. The media often dismissed these stories as exaggerations, preferring to maintain the myth of Playboy. But insiders knew that the truth was far stranger and at times darker than the public could imagine. When Hefner passed away in September 2017 at the age of 91, the Playboy Mansion entered a new chapter. No longer guarded by the man who had built its myth, the property was finally open to scrutiny. Investigators, workers, and new owners began uncovering details that shocked the world. The legendary vault, the hidden rooms, the neglected areas of the estate all became subjects of intense curiosity. The discoveries made after Hefner's death would shatter the illusion of paradise once and for all. But even before those revelations, the stage had been set. The mansion was never just a house. It was the centerpiece of a carefully constructed empire, a symbol of both glamour and control, indulgence and secrecy. In the next part of this story, we will dig deeper into what was actually found inside, from secret archives to shocking evidence that revealed the mansion was far more than it appeared. The Playboy Mansion was legendary for its parties, but behind the glittering chandeliers and champagne glasses lay secrets that were far more shocking than any tabloid headline. When Hugh Hefner passed away, insiders, workers, and journalists began piecing together stories that had long been whispered about but never fully confirmed. What they found revealed a mansion that was less about freedom and fun and more about secrecy, control, and power. The infamous vault. Perhaps the most talked about discovery was the existence of a private vault hidden deep within the mansion. According to several insiders, this vault contained thousands of videotapes, photographs, letters, and documents collected over decades. The materials allegedly included recordings of celebrities, politicians, and influential figures during their visits to the mansion, often in compromising situations. The mere existence of such a vault struck fear into the hearts of Hollywood's elite. Imagine knowing that moments you thought were private had been secretly captured, locked away in a collection that could destroy careers and reputations if ever leaked. But the story does not end there. Reports suggest that just before Hefner's death, this vault was destroyed. Some claimed the contents were thrown into cement and permanently sealed away. If true, this means that some of the most explosive secrets of Hollywood history were buried forever. But the real question remains, what was so damaging that Hefner, a man obsessed with archiving his life, decided it had to be erased? The vault was not the only disturbing detail. Former staff and residents revealed that the mansion was equipped with an extensive surveillance system. Cameras and microphones were allegedly hidden in rooms, hallways, and even private spaces. While some of this surveillance was justified as security, insiders claimed much of it was used to monitor the women who lived there and to capture moments that could later be used as leverage. This raised alarming concerns. Were guests being filmed without their knowledge? Did Hefner use these recordings to protect himself against lawsuits or blackmail? The surveillance culture inside the mansion transformed what seemed like a place of liberation into something closer to a panopticon, a house where everyone was always being watched. Hidden rooms and secret passages. Adding to the intrigue were the hidden rooms scattered throughout the mansion. Workers described padded chambers, mirrored walls, and concealed passageways connecting Hefner's bedroom to private areas. Some of these spaces were designed for convenience, allowing Hefner and his guests to move discreetly from one part of the mansion to another. But others seemed to have more unsettling purposes. For years, rumors circulated about parties that became darker behind closed doors, where rules were blurred and boundaries were crossed. The hidden architecture of the mansion made these stories all the more believable. The mansion was not just a stage for entertainment, it was a carefully designed labyrinth where privacy was impossible for some, yet secrecy was guaranteed for others. Beyond the surveillance tapes and hidden rooms, another discovery revealed just how meticulous Hefner was about documenting his life. He reportedly kept more than 2,000 scrapbooks, each filled with photographs, newspaper clippings, and personal notes. These scrapbooks covered everything, from magazine milestones to private moments at the mansion. While some saw this as the work of a man obsessed with preserving history, others viewed it as something more troubling. The scrapbooks were not just about Hefner. They also contained details about the lives of those who passed through his world. Once again, the line between preservation and control became blurry. Perhaps the most chilling revelations came not from vaults or rooms, but from the women who once lived inside the mansion. In later years, former girlfriends and playmates began sharing their experiences, and the picture they painted was far from glamorous. They described strict curfews, expectations to participate in nightly routines, and rules about appearance. Hefner allegedly controlled what the women wore, when they could leave, and even how they spoke in public. Some spoke of isolation, of feeling trapped in a gilded cage. While the outside world envied them, the reality was often suffocating. In documentaries and interviews, some women admitted to struggling with depression and low self-esteem while living in the mansion. What the public believed was a life of luxury and empowerment was, in their eyes, a life of control and performance. The grotto's darker reputation. No feature of the Playboy Mansion was more famous than the grotto, the steamy poolside cave where countless parties took place. To the public, it was the ultimate symbol of fun and indulgence. But insiders described it very differently. Over the years, reports surfaced of questionable behavior, unsafe practices, and blurred boundaries inside the grotto. What was supposed to be a paradise often turned into a place of discomfort for many. Some later revealed health risks associated with its use, further damaging the grotto's reputation. The very symbol of Playboy glamour had, by the end, become a symbol of excess gone wrong. As time went on, the mansion itself began to show signs of neglect. Inspections revealed mold, outdated electrical systems, and unsanitary conditions in certain areas. Behind the sparkle of chandeliers and velvet furniture, the estate was crumbling. For decades, it had hosted hundreds of parties, thousands of guests, and untold stories. By the 2010s, the toll of constant use had left its mark. What shocked many was the stark contrast between the image of perfection Playboy projected and the reality inside its walls. The same mansion that appeared in glossy magazines was, in truth, a decaying structure hiding decades of secrets. When all of these revelations are pieced together, a new image of the Playboy Mansion emerges. It was not just a party house, nor merely a playground for celebrities. It was a fortress where Hugh Hefner exercised power and control. The surveillance, the vault, the rules for the women, and the obsession with documentation all pointed to a man who carefully curated not just his image, but the behavior of everyone around him. The discoveries shocked the world because they dismantled the fantasy. The Playboy Mansion was never just about fun. It was about power dynamics, hidden truths, and secrets that were never meant to leave its gates. Even after Hefner's death, fear lingered among those who had once visited or lived in the mansion. What if tapes or photographs had survived? What if hidden files one day surfaced? The destruction of the vault may have erased some evidence, but the stories remained. And in many ways, the stories were more powerful than the tapes themselves. Celebrities who had once bragged about visiting the mansion grew silent. Politicians who had attended parties avoided the subject. For them, the mansion was no longer a nostalgic memory, but a potential scandal waiting to be uncovered. Setting the stage for the final chapter. The secrets of the Playboy Mansion shocked the world because they revealed the truth behind the illusion. What was presented as freedom often felt like control. What looked like luxury often hid decay. What was sold as fantasy often masked exploitation. Yet, even with these revelations, the story does not end here. After Hefner's passing, the mansion entered a new chapter. It was sold, restored, and repurposed. But no matter how much the walls were repainted or the gardens replanted, the secrets of its past refused to fade away. In the final part of this story, we will explore what happened after Hefner's death, the sale of the mansion, and why its legacy continues to haunt Hollywood. The discoveries inside were shocking enough, but the way they shaped culture and memory is perhaps even more astonishing. When Hugh Hefner passed away in September 2017 at the age of 91, an era ended. For decades, the Playboy Mansion had stood as the ultimate symbol of indulgence, fantasy, and celebrity culture. With Hefner gone, the mansion was no longer the headquarters of his empire, nor the stage for his endless parade of parties. But while the parties stopped, the fascination with what the mansion held only grew stronger. The sale of the Playboy Mansion. Even before Hefner's death, the mansion had already been sold. In 2016, Darren Metropolis, the billionaire heir to the Hostess snack cake fortune, purchased the estate for $100 million, one of the highest prices ever paid for a Los Angeles property at the time. As part of the agreement, Hefner was allowed to live there until his death. When Metropolis finally took possession, his plans were clear. He wanted to restore the mansion to its original 1927 condition, blending its historic architecture with modern upgrades. But during restoration, contractors and workers reportedly stumbled upon areas of the house that told a very different story than the glamorous image the world had always seen. Old film reels, dusty furniture, crumbling rooms, and forgotten memorabilia painted a picture of neglect beneath the surface. Hidden compartments were discovered, along with stacks of tapes and photographs that were never cataloged. Some of it was harmless: party footage, behind-the-scenes magazine shoots, celebrity visits. But other findings raised eyebrows, hinting at the darker side of life inside. The fate of the vault. The biggest question, however, remained unanswered. What had happened to Hefner's infamous vault? Multiple reports claimed that it was destroyed shortly before his death, its contents sealed in concrete, so that no scandalous footage or compromising material could ever be released. Others insisted that portions of it survived, quietly moved to secure storage by Playboy Enterprises. If the vault was indeed destroyed, then some of the most controversial secrets of Hollywood history vanished with it. But the stories about what might have been inside continue to haunt those who once visited. Even today, the idea of secret recordings of powerful figures at their most vulnerable moments lingers in Hollywood's collective imagination. After his death, a wave of documentaries, memoirs, and interviews began re-examining Hugh Hefner's life and the truth behind the mansion. Shows like Secrets of Playboy featured testimonies from women who lived there, staff members, and former associates. The picture they painted was far from the glamorous paradise Hefner had sold to the world. Instead, many described the mansion as a place of control, manipulation, and surveillance. They recalled strict rules, curfews, and an environment where women were pitted against each other for approval. Some spoke of being pressured into situations they did not want, while others revealed the toll it took on their mental health. For years, Hefner had been celebrated as a champion of sexual freedom and free speech. But these testimonies forced the world to confront a different reality. Was he truly a liberator, or was he a manipulator, hiding behind a carefully curated image? The mansion's transformation. While the debates about Hefner's legacy continued, Metropolis pushed forward with his plans. He sought to erase decades of additions and bring the mansion back to its original architectural glory. The gardens were replanted, the interior was redesigned, and the mansion slowly began transforming into a luxury estate rather than a cultural landmark of excess. Yet, no matter how much restoration took place, the aura of the mansion remained. Neighbors, journalists, and former guests continued to whisper about the secrets its walls had witnessed. Even stripped of its Playboy branding, the mansion could never fully escape its past. The legacy of the Playboy Mansion is one of contradictions. On one hand, it was a place where celebrities mingled freely, careers were launched, and unforgettable memories were made. On the other, it was a place of secrecy, surveillance, and exploitation. It represented liberation to some and control to others. It symbolized freedom, yet also confinement. This contradiction is what makes the discoveries inside so haunting. The mansion was not simply a house. It was a mirror reflecting the double life of Hugh Hefner and, in many ways, the contradictions of Hollywood itself. Glamour and decay, fantasy and reality, power and vulnerability, all collided within its walls. Even today, many questions remain unanswered. Did the vault truly contain scandalous footage of celebrities and politicians? Was it completely destroyed, or do copies still exist somewhere? Were the women inside the mansion willing participants in a glamorous dream, or were they prisoners of a carefully maintained illusion? The lack of clear answers only deepens the mystery. Every discovery inside the mansion, hidden rooms, forgotten artifacts, surveillance cameras, adds to the legend but never fully resolves it. In this way, the Playboy Mansion continues to live on, not just as a physical structure, but as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of celebrity culture. Part of the fascination lies in what the mansion represents. It was a stage where the rich and powerful could indulge without consequences, a place where appearances mattered more than reality. People are drawn to stories like this because they expose the gap between the image presented to the world and the truth that lies beneath. The Playboy Mansion was marketed as a paradise. What was found inside suggests it was something much darker. And that tension between fantasy and reality keeps us captivated. Today, the Playboy Mansion no longer hosts lavish parties filled with celebrities. Its gates are closed, its walls restored, its grotto silent. Yet, in the public imagination, it remains alive, fueled by stories of what was discovered inside. The mansion has become more than just a piece of real estate. It is now a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, the illusions of fame, and the secrets that powerful people hide behind closed doors. And as much as restorations may try to turn it into a normal luxury estate, it will always be remembered as something more. A place where fantasy and scandal collided. A house that promised paradise but hid 1,000 secrets. A mansion that still whispers in the dark. If the secrets of the Playboy Mansion shocked you, hit like, subscribe for more untold stories, and share this video so the world never forgets what was truly uncovered inside.